Alright, hello everyone. And welcome back. So, it is a little past noon here in Finland, which means that most of the Western world is probably asleep or just waking up. Which means that this might be a somewhat slow stream today. It doesn't really matter. I am basically kind of considering this like a test stream. You can see that I actually added a chat overlay. Yay! Chat. Which I haven't had before, so you know. Things are progressing even on my streaming sort of experience level. Yeah, it's possible I have to adjust the layout of that a little bit. I just basically figured I could test it out before I started the stream, so it wasn't really planned for. Anyway, welcome back. If you're watching this live or later as a VOD, regardless, you are welcome. Let's see what we're gonna be doing today. Oh, actually, before I start messing around with the level editor, I should probably make sure I have the game built properly. So let's build the game code, i.e. the ZIG code. And for some reason my machine is slow. And that built. And then let's make sure I have the engine, i.e. the C++ code. That was actually built already. Nice. Nice. So, after spending quite a lot of time lately doing tech work, I am now back to working on the game itself. And specifically this level, the reason I'm working on this level now is that I kind of need this guy sort of visually pleasing for the Steam release. Because I kind of want to have more than one sort of biome on the Steam page, and this level is kind of distinctly different visually from the other level. It's much less green, much more sort of yellow brownish, and the cliffs are sort of done in a different way here, which I actually kind of like better than what I did in the previous demo levels. I'm probably gonna have to actually redo those cliffs later, because either this is very much in progress still. Here we have some stuff that isn't even UV unwrapped. We might get to that, but I had an idea for something that I could try to actually do today on this stream, and it's something that I've been sort of like putting off a little bit, like postponing or procrastinating with. And that is the idea of this cliff here, this ledge. Like, we obviously have to do something about that, right? I wonder what the volume levels are, by the way. Yeah, we don't have any music on. That's kind of like the most important part. Do let me know, as always, if the audio levels are borked somehow, by the way. Hey Arcane, welcome back. You get the questionable honor of being the first viewer to write in my Steam, not Steam, my chat overlay. So yeah, I figured I should probably have a chat overlay going. Do let me know if you know, if you prefer me to tweak the layout a little bit. I just took like the most basic sort of CSS example layout that I could find and like threw it in there. But I'm fully expecting to have to fiddle and tweak with that a little bit. Anyway, so this ledge here is a little bit problematic, right? You can just do this. Well, I chose the one place that has like a tree. Oh yeah, you can just drive off this thing and fall into the abyss, and it will fall until you hit the kill plane. And that's not great. I've been thinking of a number of different ways on how we could prevent this. You know, if we had let's see if we can actually fit the mother here. I think we can probably fit the mother there. Yes, we can. So if we were to like drive off that cliff, you could somehow sort of like apply forces, physics forces, to just like throw you back or put you back, spawn you back, whatever. That might be one way to do it. And that might be something that we want to look at some point. I don't know if that is actually sort of like better game design in any way. That might actually be like a way that you could sort of exploit that system a little bit, unless you spend a lot of time making it super robust. I think what we're gonna do in the meantime is quite simply put a blocker there, so that you can't actually drive off this cliff. The blocker needs to be sort of it can't be sort of too tight. It can't sort of, what am I trying to say here? It needs to be sort of conservative, so you can sort of like drive a little bit off the cliff, but like you can't completely fall off the cliff. And the same thing goes for like if you have cargo, which you currently kind of don't have in this level, but you will have eventually, because this level is part of the single player campaign. If you have a piece of cargo here, the idea is also that like you shouldn't be able to just like lose cargo by throwing it off out of the level, right? So we need to kind of make sure that doesn't really happen. And so we can set up a physics blocker, and we will set up a physics blocker in this stream. One or several. I haven't exactly figured out how to do it yet. You can see that we have like here's sort of the end of the level, and you're technically not even supposed to be able to drive here. So there's going to be like probably like a slowdown area and a blocker here as well. But the blocker needs to go from essentially like this tree here, or this cliff, sort of like all the way around this part and all the way to the tunnel, and then we will need one more here, right? Oh, there's a hole. That's not good. And there's another hole. Oh. I've been bad at my job again. Yeah, we need to block off those parts. You don't typically need, or you shouldn't be able to get out of the level unless you're using something like the Flying Scout mod here. Like you can't really get over this basalt quarry. These basalt pillars are high enough, so you shouldn't have to do anything there. But yeah, here you need to obviously block that off. You should really make it so that you can radio contact any vehicle, not just the one that are kind of like registered. Ugh. Once I was playing Mafia 2 on my PS3 running a car, jumped from a speed bump. Upon landing, car just fall through the city ground level. Yeah. Free fall out of bounds. After some time, guess what happened? Yeah, that's anyone's guess. I guess like one. Well, I have a few guesses. Either the game crashed, or you got respawned, or you hit like a kill plane, so you got like level game over or something. But those are the obvious ones. So I'm guessing that you ran into something more interesting, right? Is that how it went? Something super random happened, I would assume. Far below was a city copy of the in-game city. Huh. Interesting. You know what? Speaking of copies of levels, look at this. I have this level here. Go below the ground. Guess what's gonna be under the ground? A copy of the level. Hey, at least the cliffs without the terrain. Sort of a graveyard down here. This just has to do with my level design process. These are also called quick meshes, so they are editable in the Blender sync system. Alright, I should update to Blender 4.5 actually. Yeah. Yeah. Allow. That's good. Anyway, if we open one of these guys, like, let's get the one with the tunnel, for example, edit in Blender. You should be able to see it here. Switches away from the thing, so you can see that like we have this piece of geometry here, which is sitting and designed to be kind of used together with these other pieces. And when I, as part of the level design phase, at some point I go like, right, this piece is now considered done, and then I make a copy of it that I turn into an actual game object type in the editor on the engine. So you can see this is like Cliff 20 is that object type. Might actually be a little difficult to see, but we can see it here. Depot level specific Cliff 20, but this version underneath it is just common quick mesh. And so until I have basically like the level fully designed in such a way that I know, okay, I'm not gonna have to change any of these cliffs anymore, I typically have like a separate copy of the level underneath the level, and those will be typically like untextured and etc. I don't know if that is what happened in Mafia 2, but it's an interesting thing anyway. I think a height variable was overflown and I was transferred to the sky. That is possible, yeah, that's possible. This time falling didn't actually progress me toward ground. It was nice. That was a trippy experience. Yeah, I mean, it's always possible that, like, you know, the renderer overflowed, but the physics didn't, or something, and that might cause some super confusing things where you're like, your physics representation is still under all the collision shapes, but the renderer sort of thinks you're up in the sky or something. And of course, with like Mafia 2, it probably has to do with the fact that you know, there was a streaming issue or something. That tends to happen in open world games. This is not an open world game. Traction Point is not an open world game, so I can have all the collisions streamed in for the level at the same time. These levels are not so ridiculously large that I need to actually stream them in and out. Actually, this is a pretty small level, all things considered. It's even smaller than the demo one. So I don't really need to think about that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, nonetheless. Anyway, now we get to sort of like the technical part of this stream. So if we put blockers around this area, they are physics blockers, so they will block everything essentially, but they will also block the camera, and that's not great. That's not great, because what if we want to do this? We drive here, we come to the ledge here, or edge. Is it edge or ledge? I think it's probably both. We come to this here, and what if this is kind of like the place where we put the blocker? Something like this. If we put the blocker down here, it would still be nice if the player could sort of view it from this angle. But if we put a blocker there, then they can't actually do that. Now we're stuck, so I'm gonna have to unstuck ourselves. Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna have to make like a nicer visualization for the unstucking. Let's actually see what that would look like, right? So if we put a blocker, let's just put a blocker somewhere closer to where we will spawn. So here is a nice kind of straight edge. Put a blocker here. Blocker. Move it over, and let's make it like maybe 10 high and like 30 wide, just to have something. And then we try to sort of, yeah, that's actually exactly how it works. Something like this, right? Now you can't really get over that thing. So what will happen now? Now we don't need to save. So now if we come here and try to drive over the cliff, it should block us, right? It blocks us like that. But look at this. Turn the camera here, and blocks the camera as well. Even though, like, yeah, occasionally it kind of goes through. And that just has to do with the fact that this thing is so thin, right? But if we make it like 30, 30 is a bit much, maybe 10. Let's make it 10. It should illustrate the issue better. It should now block the camera, and that is not something I want to do, because it's nice that the player can sort of view this thing from afar. Like, you get this, because the camera gets blocked as well. All right. So we're gonna have to actually make a blocker that doesn't block the camera for this. This is the first time I've ever needed one. Actually, I've probably needed one before, but I've managed to sort of work around that somehow. But this is now it is time to make one, and I sort of have a plan for that already. So I'm gonna go through that, and then we're gonna do a little bit of coding, and then we're gonna put in the blocker. And I would probably use a mesh for the blocking. Let's see. Any opinion on CryEngine? Well, I've never used CryEngine, so I can't really have an opinion on it. But I've played a lot of I've played a few CryEngine games. Played a few CryEngine games, and I've liked CryEngine games a lot. So yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, Crysis is fun. Far Cry is fun. Rise is pretty fun. What about Collision Map? I don't know what is a collision map. It might be completely fine, completely valid, but I don't know what that is. And even if we had a collision map, right? The problem is not that we can't make collisions nicely here. We can definitely do that. The problem is that the camera is also affected by the collisions and we need to sort of filter them out. So I don't think a collision map, whatever that is gonna help with that necessarily. So how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, actually have a little bit of. I started like messing with this yesterday, thinking about how I could make a blocker that like make a blocker that ignores camera or ignores other things, right? We should make a system that, like, in this case, we can use for other things as well, not just excluding cameras. In Unity, you have types of collision that interact with each other, and some of them ignore some. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yes. See, the thing is, what you're talking about is probably physics collisions, right? And that is absolutely something that we can do. The problem is that, it's not really a problem, but the thing is that the camera is not a physical object. And so here we have the vehicle camera controller.zig, and this does a sweep for collisions function, tries to find, you know, the closest object that it's supposed to collide with, and it just does a sphere sweep. So almost like a ray cast, but instead of casting a ray, we cast a sphere, and then we get the hits back, right? So if you're doing collisions, then yes, you have. It's actually, I think, baked into the material, if I remember correctly. So we have like physics material. This thing here. This is slightly kind of simplified in the sense that I don't expose the full sort of matrix of what collides against what to the SIG layer, or even the C++ necessarily. I just have a material type here, which has like some types of materials. We actually even have a couple of kind of like hacks on top of it. Material type object to object internal or object ignore internal collisions. So this object only collides with other things, not like itself. And then the second one, I don't remember exactly what these are used for, but they're used for something. Oh, and actually, if we then go and have a look at like one of these, right? Let's search for that. Here we can find what it actually does in the end. It's kind of horrible code. I apologize for that. But it initializes a filter data, simulation filter data. This is fed to physX sooner or later. It's probably here. It's probably that one. Yeah, we set it on the shape. This is a PX shape, so this is a physX object. Set simulation filter data, and this is where you can specify, you know, that kind of how do we filter out collisions against other things. So we do use that, absolutely. The problem is that the camera is not a physical object. It's just something that we have in the world, right? It's like masks. Yes. What if you just make conditional state if camera should ignore some type of colliders, right, in code of camera? You're gonna see that is exactly what I'm gonna do. That is exactly what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna use bit masking. Okay, I'm just gonna show you what I'm gonna do here, because I have a plan for this. I have a plan for this thing. That part is super easy. Go back to Zig code, so the game code basically. right here, to do, check if we should ignore this hit, right? That's where we want to actually just do a continue if this object that we hit is supposed to ignore camera collisions, right? And the sort of problem, if you want to call it a problem, the large amount of work that goes into this is actually like being able to set that here. So if you have a blocker, kind of like a 10 by 10, just so we have something to see. If you have a blocker here, we position it like this. Now we need to be able to somehow tell this guy, hey, this blocker should ignore camera collisions. Or rather, the camera should ignore collisions with this blocker, right? How do we do that here? One thing here is that this blocker component, as you can see, it's called basis : physics blocker component. Physics blocker component is actually a C++ component. This is a component that's been in my engine for years and years. Looks like this. It creates the material shape rigid body static. Tri-mesh is actually probably something we're going to use today, right? So we can't just put a boolean on this guy and go like, hey, ignore camera collisions with this guy, because this code is running in the game, and this is SIG code. So SIG code doesn't know anything about C++ code, except if we like expose things to it. But let's try to keep it like efficient and nice. So my plan is this. In C++, there is the game object type. So this is kind of like the classical Unity game object model in that sense. I mean, it's actually very different from that, but for this particular purpose, it's kind of like compared to that. So we have something here that I don't currently really use for anything. Something called a game tag, and this comment here says that, okay, the game tag is not used by the engine. The game can set a tag on the game object, and it can get it back out. And you can use it for anything. The engine doesn't care. It's just a way to tag objects. Why not use px query filter data? Basically, what I just said. If you just joined, you might have missed it. But the camera is not a. All right. Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. You can actually pass px query filter data to the sweeps. That is possible. However, if we go down that route, we can't tag objects for anything else than physics. You know, things that actually go through physics. And I want to use these tags to be able to tag all kinds of things. But that is true. Yes, you could actually do the filtering that way by actually passing it to the sweep. I don't think we actually expose it here, but it is exposed on the C++ level, and we could expose it if we wanted to. So basically, the only thing that I do here in this function is having this blocking actor types, and this is that's a bit mask of let's see, physics, I think. Or is it physics actor, maybe? Yeah, it's a bit mask of this, so you can exclude certain types just based on the actor type. But yeah, I think you're right in that you could actually filter based on the px data. However, that would be even more work on the physics side, which I kind of don't want to do, because I'm not sure like exactly how we are going to be needing like those tags on the physics layer later. But I do know that we actually want to tag just game objects in general based on some values that don't necessarily have anything to do with physics. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about just hooking it into this game tag value here. Right, so anyway, what we already get for free and what we've essentially almost always had here is a unsigned 32-bit integer here called the game tag. And this thing is exposed to Zig. It's never been used from Zig, if I can remember correctly. So we have like a, you know, like a const game of let's do go is probably gonna have to specify the full thing here. Just do undefined here. If we have a game object pointer, you can do set game tag to something, and you can also do get game tag, and you get the uint32 out of there, right? And so what I did was, since that's just a uint32, you don't really know how to you know, interpret that value. I think my original idea was that it would just be like an integer that would specify something. But I added something, and you can see this is actually not even submitted to Git yet. I added just an enum here called tag flags, which I felt was kind of a catchy name, but more than anything, it's sort of like very explicit. If you hear or read the word tag flags, you know exactly what it is. So tag flags would be like a bitwise uint32 flag value that you store in that tag thing over there. And this one we can now then use for anything. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything, have anything to do with physics. We can use it with like visuals and networking and all kinds of things. So let's try to do that. And I also started working on something called a tag flag component. So the tag flag component is quite simply a component that allows you to set a number of these flags to something. And you can do it in two ways. This is all unproven and sort of halfway done, so I'm gonna have to finish it actually. If we look at the physics blueprints, and we can look at the, well, that's supposed to be called actually physics blueprints, right? Isn't it? Well, not necessarily. Let's just keep it as it is. So I created this game blocker just like basically like an hour ago or something, which is a hey Gigadit, welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. There's a game blocker is based on the physics blocker. So the physics blocker is basically this thing here. Physics blocker right here. And you can take a blueprint and base it on something else. So we have a game blocker. This is on the game side, which means that we can use Zig code here, and it basically just adds all the components from this, and then you can add more on top of it. And here I've added one of these tag flag components, and so you can do like set flags in blueprint, and you can set, you know, flags to set and flags to unset if you want to have that. And we can add like, okay, so this type will always ignore camera collisions if you want to do it that way. I kind of don't want to do it that way because the game blocker's idea is just that it is like it's a blocker, but that has some game specific functionality added on top of it. I'm not sure all of my game blockers are going to be, you know, ignoring camera collisions. So let's keep this unchecked, this set flags in blueprint for now. And instead what we can do is we get rid of this blocker here and add the game blocker instead. You can see that it looks exactly the same. We can make it a box as well. And it has a tag flag component, and we can set here. This is a little clunky, that's just because my engine is a little clunky and weird. You need to set kind of like how many of these you want to actually set. You can set up to 4 currently. You can of course set more, but I kind of limited it to 4 for the time being. So flags to set, and you can set, for example, one of the flags to ignore camera collisions. Doesn't really make sense to have more than one because we only have one of those flags, right? But this way you can just add one of these tag flag components to any object type and have them both set and unset those flags, depending on what the gameplay needs. Right. We're gonna have to implement this tag flag component. That actually doesn't do it yet. We're just storing them in here in these objects. Unfortunately, I can't use arrays with these guys, so they have to be sort of explicit members of this class if we want them to show up here in the exposed property map, which just basically means that they will show up in the inspector. I need to add support for arrays at some point. I have it sort of working in C++, but not in C yet. So we're gonna have to figure that out, and then we're gonna have to come here and exclude that thing. And I think we can actually do it, right now. So again, sweep for collisions. And I think there's another sweep for collisions as well, isn't there? Maybe not. Maybe this is the only one, because there are two calls for it. One of them is probably the orbit camera, and the other one is the driving camera. So this is the tick driving camera, and this one is probably the orbit camera. They both use the same function, so that's neat. We don't need to mess around with that. Anyway, if we go and have a look here at the hit, so hit results I. Get game object. Right, so const go. If go. If not go is null, then we're gonna want to do certain things. So const tag flags. I can fully specify that here, but I think it probably actually get game tag. Yeah, that's already U32, so we don't have to really mess around with that. Okay. And so basically, if see, do we need to probably bring in? Let's do tag flags is probably means. We don't have means, so we need to bring in means here as well. Or is it maybe? Oh, where's this thing actually? Oh, it's in VHL. Yeah, see that's stupid. So VHL is my vehicle helper library, and means is of course the code name, the project name for the game. So means would be the actual game. VHL is sort of like a lower level thing than the game itself. But okay, that's not a problem. What we can do here is quite simply pass that value to this vehicle camera controller. So let's store that as a uint32 here. Right, so ignore camera collisions tag flag u32, and yeah, we can't even initialize it there to anything, but we can do this and store it. And then I think it is probably like the player controller is the one that actually is it not? Oh, that's not it. It is. It's client player controller. Here we go. So here we have vehicle camera controller. It's right there, and this guy gets initialized here. And here we can quite simply do 0 here. That should tell us that that is the flag. That is of course not what we want, but it would be means dot tag flags dot ignore camera collisions as int, which is actually a U32. Right, so that we can compare against this value in the camera controller. How about that? And so we can do if tag flags or self ignore camera collisions tag flag is not 0, then continue. Right? Does that make sense? And we can even just take that away because it's faster that way. Something like that. See if that builds. It does. Nice. So I think the only thing that we need to do here now then is actually set that value. Create is probably the correct place to do that. We can take the destroy away. We don't need that for anything. And that's some old stuff copied from somewhere else. Oh, actually, create might not be the correct place, now that I think about it. Actually, what we might want to have is on object created, which kind of seems like it would be the same thing as create, but it's actually not. Create is called when this component is created. On object created is called when all of this object's components are created. The reason I want that is we have these blueprint properties. I think the blueprint properties are actually set only after create is called. So the blueprint properties would be, you know, these guys, this thing here. And we want to, in particular, we want to read this set flags in blueprint value. That's very important. Oh, it's called blueprint. Let's fix that. Tag flag component here. Yeah. I went a little German there for a bit. Reload. There we go. Set flags in blueprint. So if this is true, we wanna read the flags from these values. If it's false, we wanna read them from these values. So that should allow us to use this component both for like object types that you know, based on the type, it always sets camera collisions to false, for example, as well as things like blockers where you might want to set that flag on a like per instance basis. So let's first of all let's assert that we have blueprint properties. Oh, I did that wrong. Yeah, I changed my assert some time ago to always take a source location as the first slot, as the first parameter. So, if pp props set flags in blueprint, we want to do something else. We want to do something else. And that else is what we are interested in for this blocker case of ours. Right. So now it would be very nice to have a slice with just these guys in them. But unfortunately I can't make them an array because arrays not currently work with these exposed properties. So how do we do this the nicest way? I have them nicely as slices here, actually bounded arrays, but these guys can produce a slice for us to be used with this case here, set flags in blueprint, right? Well, it's a very basic way to do this is just to do this. You know, if flags to set int is larger than 0. So because we have this this count here that we set in the inspector, what we can do here is, first of all, we need to get the tag value. So game tag. Or actually, first of all, we need to get the geo self context get game object, and then we need to get it as a variable. So game tag. It's like geo.game tag, right? Really curious about your reason for choosing NVRHI. It's the complete solution. Does it offer most of the functionality you'd expect from full graphics API, like OpenGL? Yeah, the short answer is yes. Yes, it is. I'm gonna write this code and then I can comment on that in just a second. So if we have flags to set larger than 0, then basically we want to do game tag is flag to set 0 int from enum, I think. I wonder if that would work, or is Zig gonna complain about some casting thing here? Yeah, that does seem to work. At least it compiles. So then we can actually just copy paste this and go like this. It's not the most elegant solution, I know. Can't be helped, can it? And then for the unsetting, that would be unset and unset. Something like that, and then it should be like, is that how you do it? Let's learn a little bit of Zig, shall we? Oh boy, we have a lot of those. Bitwise not, yeah. Okay. Bitwise not. That's what we want. And that looks good. So if we don't set it from blueprints, we set them from those property values. If we do set them from blueprints, it should be a little nicer because we do have for PP props flags to set slice, we have a flag, and then we can have a. Oh, actually, this is, we don't need to do it like that. We can just do dot as int, right? That might be a little nicer, maybe. As int, something like that. Right, and then we can basically do that, and that would be if as int, and then for the unsetting, we of course do the opposite, like so, and then we just need to set that back. So go set game tag. Yeah, not a fan of this. But I have to think about how to actually get those into slice there. Rightio. I think this is gonna work. Let's try it out and see. And then I can comment on the NVRH, I think. So it was game blocker. Make it properly large, this guy. So we have a blocker here that, like, there's no way we're ever gonna be able to get the camera to, like, where should we put it? Maybe it starts right by this rock here, like so. So now if we play this, we can save. Sure. The camera should not go through it. It should be blocked by it. That rock there. So we block the bonk and oh what? Did I do something stupid? What's happening with this? We don't set anything. Don't set anything there, but that might actually be. Reloaded it and it's still not sending it there. Okay. Well, save this and unload the level so that we can make some changes to the code here. And let's actually print this, see what we actually are setting those to. Go game tag is something. Game tag. Right. Alright, okay, it's set to 0. You can already see it's set to 0. We should actually get it twice, because we should be getting it on both client and server. Isn't that the case? Yeah, there's the other one. GeoGain tag 0, and that's probably the client. And still, the camera goes through it. Well, that's okay. Now we can set it to actually. Oh, what happened? Oh, I'm blocking the process there by highlighting that thing. So now we set this to 1, and the one flag that we set is ignore camera collisions. We should see that value change. So quickly make sure that is the case. Game tag 1. Excellent. Right, so this component now works. So that must mean that there's something curious with the collision code. That's not the right one. This is the right one. Yeah, so it's back to 0. Even though it still remembers that. But we set it to count to 0, so that means that it is at 0, which is what we want. Nice. Okay. So now then, what do? We get the game tag. Oh, that needs to be an AND, of course. That needs to be an AND, of course. That should be better. So now I'm going to verify by not setting that flag and actually driving up against the blocker. So bonk, and now it should block it, and it does. See, we can't have the camera enter that volume at all. Nice. And then now if we go here and we actually set it back to ignore camera collisions, it should work. And it does work. Nice. Nice. I think I actually want to use this in another place in the demo level. Yeah, you can see it's actually quite large. That's why I was like, what? Where is it? But it's actually here. It's that large. Yeah. That's neat, and that should also mean that, like, if we have the driving camera on, driving camera should use the same check, so it should also not, which you can see it does. Driving camera doesn't care about that. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, so that I think covers the technical side of the blockers. Now we just need to actually block this thing out, which is perhaps arguably more difficult. But Gigadit had a question about NVRHI. So, is it a complete solution? Okay, just quickly. Signerboy says, I love this game, driving is so fun. That's excellent. Thank you for the kind words. Makes me feel good. Keep it up. I will. I'm do my best. Anyway, is NVRHI a complete solution? I feel it is very much a complete solution. But that, of course, depends on what you actually need from a graphics API. So in my case, I am very much not a graphics programmer. I'm actually like really bad at rendering. And that is why this game looks like it does. It's using a decidedly kind of stylized cartoony art style, which I probably would be going with either way. But with my current skill set, I can't do anything else. Realistically, if I want to make a game, I need to go with an art style like this that's sort of like forgiving on the technical front, because that's the only thing I can do. If that makes sense. I like D3D11 quite a lot. D3D11 is sort of like my sweet spot for graphics API in terms of complexity, because we're running on D3D11 here. We are though running on D3D12 in the game these days, just because I have it set to use D3D12 in the main menu. And in the upcoming Pre-Alpha 3, you will be able to run the game in D3D12 mode as well. And just last stream, actually, which you can find, it was like from a few days ago, is where we added back that graphics API selection thingy to the menu. So now you can actually play the game in D3D12 mode. You can see, yeah, works fine. Works fine, and especially on AMD cards, it runs kind of significantly better, actually, at least in certain cases. On the Steam Deck, you can see here, I have a post-it note here on my disk from my tests from a few days ago. So I typically limit it to 40 Hz from the Steam Deck overlay. And the game just looks very nice and smooth on Steam Deck's kind of a small screen, limited to 40 Hz. And on D3D11 it runs at like, it dips as far as 23 in certain cases. On D3D12 it basically doesn't really dip at all. I think 39 was the lowest I measured. So that's like within the margin of error basically. So it's definitely like nice to be able to run with D3D12, because you get to take advantage of the DXIL shading language or bytecode, which is more efficient than the DXPC one. And just like D3D12 is at least like in theory faster than D3D11. But I don't really want to work with D3D12, nor do I want to work with Vulkan, especially not Vulkan. They're just too difficult, too low level for me. I get nothing done if I work with them. And so for me, NVRHI is the perfect level, almost sort of like more perfect in a way than D3D11, because it takes like the trickiness of synchronization, resource barriers, and just like the complexity of binding, takes them away and like wraps them up behind like a unified API. It's not super easy to work with always, as you can see if you watch my previous stream. I had some major issues actually getting D3D12 up and running with NVRHI. It is not a case of, you know, just simply create a D3D12 device, give it to the NVRHI wrapper, and then off you go. That's really not how it works. I had to do like a whole refactoring of how I do samplers, for example. Otherwise D3D12 would just crash. So it's a pretty thin layer on top of the native graphics API, but I consider that like a good thing in my book. As for whether or not it is complete, well, as I said, I'm not a very advanced graphics programmer, so I don't really know what to expect from like a complete API. But NVRHI supports things like ray tracing, bindless rendering, and other things that I don't use myself. But like as far as I know, the SDL3 API doesn't support bindless, nor does WebGPU, if I'm correct. I may be mistaken. Just like let me know in the chat if I have something wrong. But that's my understanding, that you can't actually use WebGPU with like bindless. I don't know if you can actually ray trace with WebGPU. Maybe you can do that now. Hey Matt, welcome back. It's been a while indeed. I took a little bit of a summer break from streaming, so that's one reason why you haven't seen me. But But yeah, it's been a while. How have you been? So maybe that answers some of your questions. Like as for why I don't use D3D11 directly, if I like it so much, my answer to that is basically like I wish I could. But if you want any sort of like semi-decent tools support these days, you basically have to use one of the recent APIs. I wish D3D11 was, you know, just as supported as it once was. Then I wouldn't have to deal with this. Or shall we say, now that Proton is as good as it is, and you kind of don't really have to consider making a Vulkan backend just to be able to play on Steam Deck and Linux. Now I kind of don't have to care about anything because I have D3D11 and I have the D3D12 and they both work. So I should basically like cover everything I need. But yeah, I hope that answers your question about NVRHI. I like it a lot. I've been meaning to actually create a video about like web GPU versus NVRHI because I keep getting views on my web GPU video, which is a little silly because I don't really use web GPU anymore, right? Haven't for a while actually. And so people ask me like, hey, what do you feel about web GPU, this or that? And I'm just like, I don't know. This looks cool, says Zia. Well, thank you. Join the Discord and you get to play it. You might get to play it soonish without joining Discord. But for now I ask people to come there to get the build, so that if you have any issues with it, which you most certainly will have, I can help you out immediately. In fairness, Finnish people need sun before the darkest Finnish winter. Yeah, I'm actually kind of sunburned right now, and it will go away in a month, or actually in like 2 weeks, and then I will look like a ghost again for the rest of the year. You know how God intended, how God created the Finnish person. Not to get overly religious here. Right, I'm just gonna break this completely. Yeah. That's a traction point jank for you. Other games might, you know, limit you from not being able to lift yourself up from the tree. Traction point doesn't do that, it just like janks out instead. Linux. I did run this on Steam Deck just yesterday. It actually runs kind of nicely at a mostly locked 40 FPS now with the D3D12 backend. So if that counts, then yes, Linux. I don't think I'm gonna make a native Linux version, at least not like right now. But you can definitely run it via Proton. The Steam Deck runs it kind of okay. Also, your pronunciation is the old, more common one. But it's actually different. It's Zia. Oh, like Ja. Okay. Okay, I apologize. Ja. Cool. You never know if people have these pseudonyms that are just like they're actual names or some like, you know, made up words. So be careful. Anyway, that kind of covers the technical part of the blockers. So what do you say we actually go and try to you know, create a blocker now for this ledge here? Which I think we should probably do in Blender, and we should kind of try to figure out how that is actually to be done, because it's not super obvious to me what the shape of it should be. But basically what we're trying to achieve here is the fact that, like, you should never fall somewhere where you can't get up. Like, you might be able to get up from here if you have a mother vehicle that can come and help you. But if you're just a scout, then I think you're pretty much screwed if you fall down there. So we probably shouldn't allow that. Right, if you don't have the mother vehicle and you fall down here, like this, well, wonky physics. Right, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I don't think you can do a lot. No radio contacts. Even if you had a radio contact, if you have the mother vehicle there, you can't really call them and ask them to come to you because they can't come here. Right? So there's really nothing to do here. So I don't think we should allow people to drive down here or fall down here accidentally. What is the game about? Well, the game is about it's sort of like a sci-fi road trip of sorts, if we're talking about the single player game. It's kind of a sci-fi road trip where you kind of solve physics puzzles and move from area to area, trying to basically get away from this place in a sci-fi world. And you have a few of these vehicles. This one is the Scout. There's also a gripper truck that we just drove around with, and then there's this huge vehicle, the Mother, which serves as a sort of like a cargo platform, and it can do all kinds of things. Like, if you drive this thing here, you have like AI companions driving the cars that you don't actually drive currently, and you can also switch between these vehicles and drive them yourself. And then, for example, we can just lift up this guy here with our cargo crane, like this. And you can, of course, not just lift up cargo, but you can lift up you can not just lift up vehicles, you can also lift up cargo and things like that. And that's kind of what it is about. And we can drive this huge thing while the crane there resets itself. And it's actually kind of heavy, that truck there, so it makes driving this thing a little difficult. And yeah, there's like engine sounds and particle effects and things like that still missing from this big one. And there we have another one, actually. Even though there's really only supposed to be one. And now we have two since I spawned another one. That's kind of what the game is about. I hope that gives it a little bit of a perspective. That's like the single player campaign. Then we have a sandbox mode, which is, well, in some ways even less developed, where you can quite simply just load into one of these levels and mess around. And I'm also working on mod support, so here we have the first example mod is actually a flying scout, which just, as you can imagine, just completely breaks the levels. So this one is mostly just meant to like have fun with and mess around with, but you can actually fly with this thing. At least make these really, really long and high jumps. But it's not super easy to drive. But yeah, the idea is that this should be a very moddable game as well. So if you want to have like a physics sandbox, then you can get that as well. And eventually, I will release all of the tools and editors and everything. Since I own the whole stack, I can just give you these things. And the mods are actually WebAssembly modules. So this logic here that executes this flying here, it's actually a WebAssembly module running, which I feel is kind of interesting, although it doesn't technically make the game better or anything. Coolio. Let's do a little bit of blendering then, shall we? So do I have any blockers here at all, really? Here's a blocker, and it's there just to block that one cable. It's basically like the only thing. Let's open up the demo level and just see. That would be refinery blockout. See, how did I do the blockers here? Because I have a whole lot more blockers in this level actually. As you can see. Though not all of these are actually blockers, some of them are triggers. Here we have, for example, a blocker. So they're in env. Okay. Yeah, these yellow ones are their icons are probably hidden for some reason. Like junction trigger area. Those ones are hidden. Yeah, there we go. There are they. They're icons. The yellow ones are triggers. And then these red ones with the hand, they're blockers, but they sort of get visualized in the same way. That's why it can be a little confusing. Okay, that's fine. So under env, environment or env, how are you going to handle the respawn? Just fade to black or something more dramatic. See, I'm thinking I'm not going to handle the respawn. When would you respawn? If we need to do like an emergency respawn, it's probably just gonna be like, you know, spawn the object somewhere and then just snap the camera there. But the game design doesn't really have any respawn in it. Trying to get through your Discord, but the Discord isn't letting me scroll through the rules so that I can click submit. What? That's strange. Let's have a look-see. let's see, server guide. Let's see, can I preview that thing? Let's preview. I haven't done this in like a year or something. Right, so this is what it should look like basically for you guys, right? If you join. So check out the videos. You go like, oh, so many videos, that's cool. And then you click next. And then you can see, oh, okay, this is the attraction point development flow, that's fine. And then you come here and you say hello, hello. You have no roles. As a new member, right? Okay, yeah. You shouldn't be able to see that. And then you should be able to see the rules. The rules are right here. Isn't that basically what it is? So read the rules. We've done all of those. Now we can read the rules. You should go here. So if you just go to the rules, can you go to the rules channel? I think that should be enough if you just go here and you know, well, you need to abide by these rules, of course, but they're just the standard ones. I think that should be enough. Then you should be getting the member role, so this one, bloop. And your name should turn green. That's basically how it should be. But yeah, if it doesn't work, let me know. I haven't heard of anyone else having issues with that. Okay, so we do have an ENV layer here. Cliffs, rocks, trees, etc. Let's create a new folder in here. So let's call it something like level boundary blockers. Something like that. And now the interesting thing is like, okay, we can go around this edge here and just create blockers and try to make it fit this. But that would probably be just like completely miserable to do that. So let's actually do it with using a mesh, and we can use the Blender sync system for that as well, if we want to. I think. Let's see. Let's create another layer, and a layer that we don't auto load, and we're gonna call this. What do we call it? Let's call it editor only, first of all, and in here we can call it level boundary blockers again. And in this one we're going to create a quick mesh. So let's do it like in a few pieces, I think. So here would be like one, then another for this part, and then a third for this part here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm literally at the rules, but there's a different thing on like the message box saying something like you must complete a few more steps before you can talk. There's a pop-up that shows the rules, but I'm assuming it wants me to scroll, but it's not allowing me that, so I can click the submit button. What? That's strange. What if we just reload the browser or something like that? Like I haven't changed the rules, I think, in basically since I put them in, so I'm a little confused about why it would do that. No. Cancel. All right, yeah. Yeah, okay, that's stupid. Yeah, I changed the button that toggles this debug overlay on and off from F12, which is the the render dock take a capture button, and also the Visual Studio break into the debugger button. That was F12, so I changed it to F7, and now of course F7 means export in the editor, so probably need to change it to something more. I already tried that. Okay. That's not good. So what's your username in Discord? I can see if I can maybe try to get you past this intro thingy. So basically what I'm thinking is happening here is that like the so-called onboarding, which is like a Discord feature, is somehow bugged. And I don't know if it's bugged just for you or if it's bugged just for like everyone. But it doesn't sound good if you actually can't complete that, right? Anyway, do let me know your username. I can see if I can try to bring you through that somehow. In the meantime, let's go and start messing with this blocker volume here in Blender. So if I have the Blender Sync server running, what we can do is basically, how should we do the cutoff? And the cutoff should be just like here in this inner corner there. Why not? Which means that like the middle of the object would be somewhere here. Let's put a quick mesh there. Boom. Like so. And we're gonna include surroundings, maybe like 100. It's not quite enough. 150. 150 looks pretty good. We can see that we actually can just move it a little bit over here, and that should probably cover it quite well. So, edit in Blender. And actually, one important thing here is the fact that we need to, if we model the blocker like this as a mesh, we need to then actually put that blocker in this very exact spot. So actually, let's do a not stop server, but cancel edit. Let's put this at. I like to have these at like some pretty kind of easy to remember, and sort of like round coordinates. Moves it just a little bit, but let's have just one decimal point here, and then we can even like copy that somewhere if we want it, not having all of those minuscule numbers there messing with us. Okay, so edit in Blender. So the blocker object pivot needs to go where that now is, which is fine. That is completely fine. I'm gonna do random, so we get some slightly nicer colors here. And now we can just basically get rid of all of that. But maybe we don't need to get rid of it. Maybe we can just move it over here. See if I can remember how to use Blender once again. It's been a while since I did it last. So it's right around here. That's the thing. Can't help, all is working for me. Well, thanks for the report. Yeah, it's strange. I don't think I've heard anyone else complain, but I do believe you, Shah, that it is not working, but it's kind of strange that it is. It's kind of strange that it is. Okay. Or rather that it isn't. Strange that it isn't working for you, and annoying at the same time, I imagine. So we're gonna want to keep this fairly low poly. But we don't need to do it like, we don't need to necessarily keep it super low poly, but still pretty low poly. So let's just do something like this maybe. And I'm not sure about the shape of this. What should it actually be shaped like? Excuse me. If we keep it just as a straight wall, then there is of course the possibility that you will kind of like accidentally hit it, which may not be what we actually want. But it also might be what we want. And here in cases like this where we have like more of these steps, let's actually turn on the cavity rendering here, and I think world is probably what we want. Then we want to make sure that these places here, these steps, if you will, are accessible to the player. There's no point in like trying to be overly restrictive. We just don't want to let vehicles and objects and all of that fall out of the world so that we can't get them back. That's basically what we're trying to prevent here. Trying to prevent the player from putting the game into a state where it can't recover from. We don't want to try to be annoying. Let's not be annoying. If we can help it. I think I actually want both. Somehow it's a little difficult to see these. Yeah, that's better. It's a little difficult to see these shapes here. And of course we're going to want to make it higher, taller, but one thing at a time. Let's get this kind of snaking around the thing done first. Basically making an invisible wall. Yeah, sort of. Absolutely. And I'm not sure if this is going to be, you know, the the final solution for this, but for now, I think we're gonna go with this. And the reason I'm doing it now is that I'm kind of hoping to let you guys play this in the next pre-alpha a little bit, kind of like better than you currently can. You can already access this in pre-alpha 2. Just go through the debug menus, and it's basically exactly this version that you see here. So it's kind of like underdeveloped still, but we're gonna need to up our game with this a little bit. I also need this level to be better for the Steam page, which is also going to go up, hopefully relatively soon. Wonder here if we should just get rid of that. Yeah, that's probably fine. Let's try to keep the mesh count down on this. It's basically gonna be kind of complicated anyway, no matter how we design it. So. Bye-bye. Some of the worst physics slowdowns I've had in this project or the precursor to this project have come from using tri-meshes in the physics world. If you have enough of them and you have complicated enough of them, it can just be super slow. So a game that runs at like a locked 120 frames or so suddenly runs at like 20 or 40 or something, like very slow all of a sudden. Then it turns out, oh, it was actually the physics tri-meshes causing those issues. So something like this, right? And I wonder if we should do something like this. We just bring this top part up like quite a lot, something like that. Because remember, we can actually we can reach pretty high or far, well, high up. Probably the better word here. Reach pretty high by by using like cranes and things. So we're definitely gonna want to have some height to this thing. But then I'm thinking, should we do it like this, where let's see, where we make it like kind of sloped in a little way. Would there be like a benefit to having it be kind of sloped? I'm not sure there's actually any benefit to that, but at least might make it less obvious that it's just like a blocker wall. I don't know. I don't know. And then, well, actually, I was about to say that we need to put some sort of depth into this thing, but actually we don't, because the depth is only needed if you want to block the camera. And we don't specifically don't want to block the camera here, so actually forget that. Let's see. I left and rejoined, but I still don't work. It's telling me the same thing, and for some reason every other message I send in YouTube except for my username works. What? I'm going to have this second level in the next test build. It's already in pre-alpha 2. You can play it if you want to and mess around in it. The way you do that is, let's see, start the game. You go into, well, okay, let's see. You're already, if you're on pre-alpha 2, this is actually not pre-alpha 2 anymore. This is a different build already. It just says pre-alpha 2 here. But if it looks like this, you would press F12 to get this overlay, and then you can press F8 to get this top menu. And then you come up here and you click levels and depot, map depot / depot.bin level. If you click that, you load into the level. That's already available in pre-alpha 2, so go have fun if you want to. There's really nothing here to actually do yet, and a few of these things don't have collision and things like that, so but yeah, you can drive around the place if you want to. And you have things like this where like the end of this broken monorail doesn't have any geometry, things like this. There's a whole bunch of like just weirdnesses in the level still. But yeah, go play it. Go play it. Rightio. Yeah, maybe we don't need that slant to it. Which means that we can take away that as well, right? Just dissolve that. Bye-bye. And that would be just a blocker like that. Maybe that's actually kind of okay. And we can make that maybe a little longer. Here we don't want to make it longer at all. We want to make it actually probably maybe a little shorter. Yeah, I think we're gonna probably just bring this over a little bit, because this is a place where like someone might want to come like driving here and then like want to sort of jump over that or something. So let's be a little careful with this place and give them a little bit of slack. How about that? I don't know, something like that maybe. So how do we now then get this into the blocker shape that we need it to be in? Any suggestions? What I'm thinking is that we do... Let's make a... make a folder here called boundary blockers. I didn't know that, or probably forgot. Yeah, that's fine. It's a little obtuse still. There's gonna be a proper sort of sandbox mode where you can just like go in and select levels and then play them. Now this is of course not a sandbox level. This is actually like a campaign level. And I don't think I will necessarily allow playing campaign levels in sandbox mode, because that's just kind of like spoiling the campaign, spoiling the game for you if you do that. So I might actually kind of like disallow that. Well, you can do it if you want to. When you get the tools, you can just go like, nope, I want that in the thing, and then play it that way. But like, I don't think I'm gonna necessarily out of the box keep those campaign levels in the sandbox menu. But I've been thinking about like I should really start like just creating sandbox levels. They don't need to be as polished as the campaign levels anyway. Some of them might be, but some of them might just be like it's pretty rough, but they can still be fun because it's just a sandbox mode. So should start pumping those out as well. Yeah, so much to do. Okay, so we have a folder here, boundary blockers. Let's just take this guy and export. I'm gonna want to do probably like a smart UV project, even though this is gonna be used as a blocker. Just that we have UVs because we're gonna run it through the normal mesh converter. And once in a blue moon, Asimp kind of freaks out, or Asimp needs some special flags if you don't have UVs because of some of the flags that I used there. So it's gonna export this as FBX. Probably go here and map depot, boundary blockers, boundary blocker 1, and we use the basis mesh presets, so we get that out as an FBX file. Right, so finish editing. We go back here, and now we have our beautiful blocker here. Isn't that nice? Well, not really, but we're gonna clean that up in a bit. We should be able to just hide that, and it should work. But before we do anything further, let's go and have a look here. What does this FBX look like? Yeah, that looks pretty correct to me. We're only gonna want to use that for the physics. So we come here into the asset browser and find the mesh, and then we tick physics data on. Right. Well, now I don't think I necessarily want to have I don't necessarily want to have this object here, because even if I hide it, I think it's gonna actually... Yeah, well, we don't have any physics type. Might not matter. Let's keep it here for now. This would be... What did we call that? Boundary blocker 1. Boundary blocker 1. Save that. and we hide it. Like so. What happened? Oh, there we go. I was afraid that my editor crashed, but apparently not. Right, and like I said previously, it's important that we keep this around because we need this position here. The position is important. And so if we now come here to this environment, we created a boundary blockers here as well. Create one of these game blockers in it. And we call this boundary blocker 1. We set the shape to be a tri-mesh. And then we find our boundary blocker bin mesh here. Look at that. Look at that. You could have them unlock after you've beaten the level or campaign. Yeah, that's one way. One way to do it. People are really excited about like messing around with those levels, then yeah, that might work. Right, so now let's see what this would be like if we didn't do that that camera ignore collision thing that we started this stream by doing. So now if I come here and I drive to the edge, bonk. But now you can't really see over the edge, and that's annoying because the camera does this thing here. At least I would. Oh, no, I was stuck. Oh, not quite. At least I would consider that kind of annoying. You can't do that. If you want to go like, I wonder what's beneath this thing. And the camera does this thing now. It's like, annoying. Now I got properly stuck. So that's not cool. Let's not have that. Let's instead set the flag to be ignore camera collisions, and then we play the game. And that should make it much more player friendly. We can do this. Bonk. I mean, this is a little lame. I'm gonna be the first one to say it, but this is a little lame. One might even say lazy. But if the option is that, like, the player falls down and then you respawn, and then you kind of just like waste the player's time, in a way. It's like, oh, okay, you couldn't do that. I think it might actually be, oh, that's a little stupid. Yeah, we're gonna probably have to tweak this blocker a little bit. Yeah, here for example, I don't think, yeah, you shouldn't be able to actually fall down there. Let's fix that, because you can't easily get up. Now we need to come here and we need to click edit in Blender, and we should be able to modify this guy. So where's the thing? The thing is right there. Anyway, my point being that, like, I don't think most players will be super, like, they won't be much more happy with a version that, like, lets you fall down and then you have to respawn. Like, that's not like a whole lot more fun than just being blocked. This is kind of just like showing the player immediately, hey, you can't actually do that. I'm sorry, but you can't do that. Someone might disagree. But I think I'm gonna go with this for now, and then we'll see what happens. Let's bring this in a little bit so that players don't get stuck there unnecessarily. So, you guys gonna play Mafia the Old Country today later? It's released today on Steam, and I actually went and bought it already. Even though I kind of figured I wouldn't do that. Or I figured I would eventually, but I was thinking like, maybe at some point. But then I watched Luke Stevens' video on it, and it just looks so fun, so I just had to go and buy it myself immediately. I'm gonna tighten this up a little bit here, because I think people are just gonna get stuck annoyingly on those places. It's better just to not let them go there in the first place, I feel. Yeah, we were talking about Mafia earlier in the stream, and I just realized that, hey, Old Country is out today. To be honest, I think if there's a cliff, some people are just going to want to drive off with the full expectation that you will just respawn. That's fair. That's probably what I would do as well. Yeah, I'm not saying that the expectation isn't that. That's completely fine. What I am saying though is that, like, if you drive off the cliff one time and then you respawn, and then you go, oh, okay, you can't really do that. Is that a lot more fun than just being blocked from doing it in the first place? Basically, the game is like wasting the player's time at that point, because it's you see, like, if you compare it to Halo, because Halo has a lot of these places where, like, there's a cliff, and if you jump down or you drive down, the camera kind of does this thing where it stays pretty high up, and then it looks down at the player who is falling down into the abyss, sort of thing. And maybe it takes like 5 seconds, and then you're back in the game, right? And then you spawn at like either at like a checkpoint or at a slightly different place in the level, and blah blah blah. Is that like a whole lot more fun than quite simply having the game stop you from doing it? Like, you get the same kind of you get the point that the game is trying to make, using both ways, right? The game is trying to tell you, hey, you can't do that. And it might be a little more elegant than to have it kind of like to allow the player to drive down it and then respawn them, right? But that, of course, kind of requires you to have the mechanic of dying in the first place, which Traction Point currently doesn't have. And I'm sort of hoping that I wouldn't have to actually put that in, because I don't think that the game design really like benefits a whole lot from that. That feels a little weird. Where's the collision there? It's right there. Right, yeah, okay. Yeah, what I'm trying to do here is like make it so that you can drive on these top cliffs kind of without any issues. Now you can't currently do that, so that's bad. We shouldn't have that be a thing. But I don't think that necessarily matches the. Let's see if we do like a refresh of this guy. Set empty value and then back to boundary blocker. Now it should reload it. Yep, it did. You can see, okay, here's the thing where we actually ran into the wall. I don't think it matches that completely. So the problem here is that, like, yeah, that's not sitting now at that place that we decided it needs to sit. It's a little bit offset from it. That's why it doesn't work the way it should. Yep, that looks better. Gotta be a little tighter with money for the rest of the month. So probably a what for a pick? A wait, I guess, is what you're trying to say. A holiday for the synthesizer module. Oh, yeah. Yeah, synthesizer modules are just like a guilty pleasure for quite a lot of people. I don't buy any physical synthesizer modules, but I occasionally buy software ones. Right, you can still get kind of stuck into these kinds of places. Not sure if this is really an issue, because you should be able to get unstuck pretty easily. But here you actually can't. Let's tighten up the collisions here a little bit. That would be around this place here. Yes, this one. If the cliff isn't a challenge, then it should be hard to accidentally drive off it. And if it is, then surely there should be consequences. It is not a challenge, no, it's... Whoa. Yikes. It is just a kind of... What would you call this thing? Like a set dressing? It's just set dressing. But yeah, you can sort of like consider, okay, like how difficult would it be to unhide this thing? This might actually be kind of interesting to play. If you have a place like this, it looks like this. Oh, it's not loaded, of course, by default. Yeah, we need to go in here, and we need to go. Can I actually load things from the command prompt? I probably can't. Yeah, now we need to do it from here. We need to set that to auto load. Or I need to write a script that does the loading. Sorry for the mini essay, no problem. I don't ever get annoyed with people just writing comments. That's awesome. Right, if you have a place like this, like how difficult is it to drive into the thing? I don't think it's very difficult at all. Might be a little tricky with the mother vehicle, but I'm not sure that the player will essentially really get to / have to drive the mother vehicle in this. I have a very rough plan for how the mission is gonna work out in this level. And it has the player lifting some things with the mother vehicle, but not necessarily driving a whole lot with it. And I think this place is a little tight with the mother vehicle, but it's not nothing that even the AI shouldn't be able to handle. Like this. It's just fine. So yeah, I don't think that should really be a problem. Some people might disagree. That's fine. That's completely fine. Yeah. Okay, let's do a little bit of tightening up still of this thing. And then I think I'm gonna want to move on to the next one. So here at least we have a little bit of this. Like you can actually quite easily fall down into these areas here. Vista, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's both like almost kind of like functional and story related reasons why you want to look out over this plane here in this level when you're playing the actual mission. So it is definitely a vista, and it's supposed to be a vista, but my point was more like also like thinking about what function it does from a game design perspective or a level design perspective, and in that sense it's mostly just like a visual thing. But there is definitely some kind of informational things about, well, you'll see when you play the mission. A little more here, maybe. So I want it to be sort of like if you stay on this top side here, I want it to be very, very sort of how should I explain this? I want it to be very hard for the vehicle to actually hit that thing. If you just want to like drive along this edge, you don't have any intention of driving down or over the edge. And that's kind of one reason why we might want to have some sort of slope to this. Right, something like this. Consider if you have like the mother vehicle with its cranes or something driving close to this thing, might be that there's some point in having a little bit of extra room sort of higher up. This might not do it though. This might be, you know, too little in that sense. But I don't know. Alright, if we do it like this, and then kind of only what do we have here? What do we have here? We have the outer side poking through. Maybe just add a railing then. Yes, a railing wouldn't make sense from a narrative perspective. It doesn't make sense from like the story perspective that anyone would have built a railing here. I see what you mean. Some people might find it annoying that you can't drive off the cliff, but I think it works better with the game design that I'm going for. And it also kind of reinforces, you know, if you play a game like this, this is actually supposed to be the first level in the campaign. Remains to be seen, of course, if that turns out to be true or not, but it's supposed to be first level in the mission, first mission in the game. And if you immediately figure out that okay, you can't go there, it kind of reinforces the idea with the player that okay, this is a game where you actually don't die. Because if you die, especially if that requires you to reload the game, that might be kind of annoying in a game like this. A game where you have perhaps collected some dynamic objects into a trailer somewhere and left it there, and then you suddenly do something silly, which, you know, admittedly would be your own fault, but still, you do something silly, not realizing that you're actually gonna die, and then you have to load the game, and maybe those objects aren't there anymore. Something like that. Actually, I don't think we need that. No, we don't need this thing at all, right? We can just get rid of that completely. Bye-bye. This is gonna be a little strange and wonky. So what do we do about that? Well, we'll probably just merge it with that one, right? Same thing here on this side. Actually, let's not merge it there, let's merge it down instead. The main gameplay problem I see, though, is that there is not a clear way of knowing you can't drive off. That's true. There's no visual way of knowing that, but there's a functional way of knowing that, and that is by just trying to do it, and then you realize, okay, you can't. And that way comes with no, essentially, like, you don't get punished for it, for trying. You just realize, oh, okay, you can't do that, right? Trying to remember what game I'm thinking about here. There's a game where you can jump, but only in certain cases, and you can run around these kinds of platforms, and you can run, you know, against the edge, and the character kind of just like runs up against it. I don't think that the animation even stops, and you can only jump in certain places, but I can't remember what game I'm thinking about. I played it not that long ago. I do agree with you in the sense that like this game has places, has, you know, edges where you can find down a ledge or fall down a ledge, like here for example. If you drive here, you can clearly like get down over there. So in that sense, like this boundary, level boundary here is a bit special. Yes, that is true. We have the same thing though in the demo mission. Run the game. And you're correct in the sense that we might have to like visually tell the player somehow that okay, the level ends here, you can't drive off this. But I don't know if you've actually tried doing this. I think I actually I think I developed this on stream actually, so maybe you, Matt, were even in that stream, I don't remember, but like if you turn around here and just go the other way. So I'm holding the acceleration key now. I'm not letting go of it. You can see that the speed stops, like the car almost stops completely. You can slide it a little bit there. And then you come to a place where you can't actually can't drive any further. There's a blocker here. Actually, this is one of these places where we're gonna want to use that new camera ignore thing. Right, but this is kind of like the same thing in a sense. It looks like you should be able to go there. You can't actually go there. The level clearly ends. Same thing with this place here. Try to drive under this thing. Bonk. The level clearly ends. You can't actually drive there. I mean, you might say that I don't think the level clearly ends. There's no clear indication that the level ends. And I might say, okay, that might be true. You can actually lift yourself over this pipeline with the mother vehicle if you want to. And because you can do that, there's actually another blocker there, the second blocker. But yeah, the point remains the same. There are certain places here in these levels where you actually won't be able to drive, and I basically just block them off with blockers. There's some visual distinction, some people call it jank. Not how I think, but many people seem to. Yeah, that might be correct as well. Might be correct as well. We might want to have a sort of you know how certain games have this kind of like warning, sort of like almost like, you know, police line, do not cross sort of thing that appears when you get close to the border of the level or something, right? So if you would drive like this here, like at some point there would appear sort of like a yellow warning banner that goes across this thing here. The thing is that you can drive pretty fast in this game, and so for a lot of these places it would have to actually like appear at quite a distance if you don't want to, like if you want to prevent the player from like ever hitting that barrier, it would have to appear at quite a distance, and I don't really want to do that. But that's like one reason why I have this so-called slowdown zone here. If you drive this way, the car will actually brake and just limit the speed to something like 10 or whatever. But yeah, we might want to have something like that. Yes, that is true. It won't really necessarily work in that other level that we're working on though, because you know, you're so close to this cliff already here that, you know, if you want to have this kind of police line do not cross thing appearing when you're close enough to it, it would probably appear already when you're driving along this road here, and that is, you know, obviously not something you want, because it kind of breaks the illusion. I had a chat with my narrative guy some time ago about this issue, specifically in this level, and we were thinking that, like, okay, the most elegant way of doing that would be if you're driving here. At some point, the camera would like detach from the car. It would look basically like this. You have the driving camera, and then the camera would detach like this, and the AI would kind of drive the car. I'm just driving it here, but AI would kind of drive the car like this. Oh, we hit the barrier. Anyway, the AI would kind of drive the car like this in such a way that it would like drive back to where you were, like this, and then it would, you know, reattach the camera like that. And that would work in this very specific instance. Where, like, if you have enough space, you can detach the camera like this, and then have the AI just make like a U-turn in this way. Which, you know, we have tech support for that, so that wouldn't really be an issue. And then it would, when it comes back, the camera would, well, hopefully smoother than that, but it would like reattach to the car. But again, that's sort of like a thing that, like, it takes quite a lot of work to actually make that system. Maybe it's worth making it, maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, that takes a whole lot of time away from the player, rather than just hitting a blocker, figuring, oh, okay, I can't go that way. That's like 10 or 15 seconds that the player will just have to sit there and wait for that animation to finish to get control back, right? I'd forgotten you couldn't drive on the pipeline at the start. Yeah, you can do it if you just load into the level without the mission. So if you just go here to the levels list again, and then you select refinery blockout. Those blockers are part of the mission. Kind of hard to do with a cliff, though. Yes, exactly, it is, and that's why I haven't even put it in here, because I don't think it will work with all of these cases. Like, if you just load into this level normally like this, you can just drive here. You can see where the terrain actually ends. You don't want to go over the edge there. And there's even a funky depth thing going on with this. It kind of looks a little strange. And here you can also go under the pipeline. It's normally like this. You can even go up here. Oh, actually you can't. There's a blocker here. Yeah, okay. This blocker apparently is part of the level, not the mission. I don't remember how these things work. But yeah, there's a blocker here. It goes along this angle to the pipeline. But yeah, anyway, I agree with you in many of your points. I agree with you with many of your points. I do, however, think that, like, you know, if the player starts this game and they're presented with a level like this, and I think there's gonna be sort of like a similar intro animation to what we have there in that other level, where the car sort of drives along this road like this, and then they get presented by some you know, narrative exposition, and there's like things going on here with these vehicles, and you get asked to do certain things and blah blah blah. You know, many players, perhaps myself included, would go, "Oh, cliff, let's see if we can drive off it," and then they do that, and then they go, "Oh, that didn't work." Clearly, we still have cases here where we get stuck. Anyway, if the player does that as a first thing, which is sort of sensible, yes, but then they realize it can't be done, and then they just shut the game off. without doing any of the things in the mission. And they consider it a bad game. Like, I'm sort of... I'm kind of considering here, like, there's probably other things in the game that can trigger such a reaction from them. Like, if this cliff is gonna be such a big problem, then I don't think I can really please them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I may be too naive thinking about this. It is entirely possible. Game design is not my strong suit. All I can say right now is that yes, I have thought about this and I've decided to do it like this right now, and then we can see how it works with people. Yeah, this thing is here. This is where I got stuck, so we need to do something about this place. So we can see that we actually kind of need to put a lot of care into this, you know, in order for it not to be actually super annoying, because you can quite easily get stuck on these things. It's always funny how many things get solved by having a game where you can just kill the player off during these situations. Yeah, that's true. That's true, that might be the easiest solution. And then just go, game over. Of course, one thing that like has me favoring this kind of design, at least right now, is the fact that I don't save the game very often. There's no like auto-save or anything. Or there is an auto-save, okay, there's an auto-save. Currently the auto-save only works between levels. But there's no quick save is what I was trying to say there. There's no quick save where you can save and then go try out something crazy. Maybe there should be. There's some technical reasons why that's not super simple to do. Quick save is one of those things that like, or essentially like free saving at any point is one of those things, sort of like multiplayer, that like you need to kind of plan for in advance if you want to have it. If that makes sense. And well, needless to say, I haven't planned for that. The engine actually does support quick saving in the sense that like if your component types support it, then the engine sort of supports it as well. The problem with this is that my component types don't support it. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe in like a pre-alpha or two, when people have gotten to play this. I decide that, oh, actually I need to make something that's more obvious. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure people will get to play this in a pre-alpha or 2, because this is not at least like the proper way with the mission and everything. But level, yeah, maybe you'll get to play the level kind of soonish, and then you can get feedback on this thing. One thing that we could do is if your object touches this what? I activated something strange. There we go. If your object touches this this blocker, then you quite simply show some sort of text in the HUD, just like a text up here, that like in red, that or yellow or something, that says like warning, end of level. And that of course means that you can just drive very close to it. If you're not touching it, you can drive close to it and nothing is shown. Maybe that's something I need to look into, actually. That might make sense to invest some time in. Should we just like fold these together? I think we probably should. Except perhaps those two. Let's just move them there. Is that better? That's actually probably not better at all. Let's undo that. Let's play this though. So do an export of that. Yep. And then we finish editing. What are we looking at here? Did I actually have it that close or that far from the thing? Probably did actually. Yeah, okay. I changed my mind a little bit about this about this place after seeing or after playing this myself. Of course, one reason why you definitely need to play these things. I think this is just fundamentally wrong to have it down here. I now realize after playing it, because you just get stuck there and it's annoying and you want to get unstuck. And it's difficult, and so on. Maybe I'm just being rather pessimistic about player perception. I tend to think people complain about the smallest things now in game design. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And they will complain about this game. And you may be completely correct in your assessment of this particular case. It is entirely possible that you are correct and I need to do something different. But for now we're gonna go with this and then we're gonna see how it flies. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Let's maybe move that there. Let's see, if I don't actually refresh that mesh now, will it actually update in the game? I think it probably should. But I can't be sure. So draw the physics now. Yes, it does. Good. Good. Goody. So now it should be more difficult to actually get like properly stuck here, because you still drive onto this lower level here, and then you get hit in the face by the blocker. But if you go here, you get hit in the face by the blocker almost immediately. Whoop. And you really get to experience the limitations of my tire model here, which is of course not necessarily a good thing. But you know, it is what it is. Yeah, the thing I hate like most about this solution is the fact that like you can get stuck between the blocker and the geometry, right? That's stupid. That's annoying, because the blocker is supposed to be there to kind of, you know, prevent you from doing stupid things. But now you're actually stuck between the blocker and the thing. So actually, what we want to do here, yeah, now I know what I want to do here. Or do I? I have feelings about this, but I'm not sure I actually know what I want to do here. But the thing is, we want to prevent what just happened there. And I think what happened was basically like around here, maybe? It's probably here in this place. So I'm thinking like, do we want to actually kind of like extrude it? Then it, of course, it would have to go down and maybe kind of follow the, you know, something like that, so that you can actually kind of drive on it? Question mark. Like either that, or we need to make these things actually kind of come onto the level a little bit like this. Like this. So we prevent that case where you actually get stuck between the blocker and the level. And Because that's like the nastiest thing. You like really don't want that to be. Don't want that to happen. So now you probably can't get stuck anymore. Pretty idiot-proof now, right? Here's the thing. The problem here is that, or the annoying thing here is that, like, you don't get stuck, but you can still sort of like your speed can just basically stop. Well, you don't get stuck, but you get stopped by this every now and then, and it can feel pretty bad. Yeah, this is an interesting thing. It's way more sort of interesting, but not necessarily in a good way than I originally thought it would be. I was thinking it would be a kind of a simple solution to a problem. Simple, but albeit kind of boring solution to a problem. Now I realize that it's not necessarily that simple. But I still think like this is probably a passable solution. I think it basically just has to be, at least for now, because all the other solutions are worse, or they don't fit with the narrative or with the technical requirements or whatever. Now if you do, like, as long as you try to stay somewhat on the ground, you shouldn't have any issues. If I drive along the edge all the way from over here to the end of this, and I just try to stay kind of here on the edge. Oh, now I just drove into a rock there. I will try to stay on the edge, but like a little bit away from the actual edge there. Like you can do this, and it's not a problem. So, you know, is this gonna be a problem for the average player? Like, I'm thinking no, but I don't know. It's not really up to me to decide that. Let's get some proper speed there from the tunnel. Just drive into this thing and see what happens. It's also kind of like that part there that we just blocked. That part of the whole kind of cliff it's kind of like pretty tricky. It has a lot of these kind of small like nooks and crannies and everything. And it kind of just like bounces off. This is very sort of detailed and rugged and whatnot. I would say here is maybe slightly less detailed. This place here. This might be a bit easier to get a nice blocker going there. I don't know. Yes, we have these kind of like pits here that I probably should get rid of completely. But it might not be worth it, I don't know. Yeah, but it might be kind of interesting to like set up that event that happens if something collides with that blocker. I wonder how we should make that happen. What would be the best way to hook into? There's like an on collision or something callback in PhysX, right? PhysX scene. Is it PhysX? PhysX. Oh, it's probably scene PhysX. Scene PhysX 5. On contact. There we go. On contact. So what do we do in on contact then? Extract the points, extract the contacts. Listener on collision. There's even an on collision callback. What have I used that for previously? On collision callback. Register collision callback. There we go. Collision FX Manager. On physics collision, right. So does this just get called for everything? Physics shape pointer. Physics shape pointer. Yeah, okay. Okay. So it adds things to this temp list, and then out of that we play some impact FX. Yeah. So can we have multiple of these guys? Collision callbacks enabled. Let's see. Register collision callback. Okay, yeah. So it's called. This is called, and then yeah, you can have multiple because it's running through like a for loop of all of the collisions callbacks that we have set. Right. So essentially we could set up a system that like also hooks into this thing, and when we have a collision between the local player avatar object and one of these one of these blockers, then basically you could fire an I don't know, message, send a message or something that the HUD could pick up and flash some like boundary warning thing. Something like that. I don't know. I don't know. On physics collision, we don't get the... Yeah, we only get the materials though. No, sorry, collision data. Yeah, this is the thing. Collision data is what we get. Collision data is there. The point is, so you get like the physics shapes and you get the collision point. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of it's a little tricky currently to go from a physics shape to like a game object though. So I think we can do that, but it can be a little tricky. So, yeah. Because I think physics shapes probably have a user data. I think the user data probably has like, let's see, if we go to the blocker, for example, physics blocker component, this guy creates a shape. Does it actually not set any user data on this guy? Physics shape is there. Yeah, it kind of looks like it doesn't. It only sets it on the rigid body. The rigid body gets the game object, so you could, like, technically get the game object out of that. But yeah, it's a little. It's not super easy. Yeah, this requires a little bit of thinking, I think. But thank you, Matt, for the good discussion. I need to kind of figure out some of these things, and some of them probably by just playing the game. To like see what we actually sort of want to do here. This may still be the solution I'm going with. Actually, it probably is the solution I'm going with for the foreseeable future, but this may be the solution that we're going with in the game when it releases. But you are right in the sense that, like, we probably want to tell the player, hey, you're reaching the end of the level here, right? I mean, there's a reason why car games typically don't take place, at least these sort of like physics sandbox car games don't take place in areas like this. And that is what, like, the reason is that you kind of have to prevent the player from doing certain stupid things, like driving off the cliff here. I don't think that's a reason not to do it, though. I think that's like even all the more reason to actually have levels like this in a game like this. But it definitely asks some questions of your game design. Like, hey, what do we actually want here? Anyway, that's my rambly answer to this for now. Anyway, the code that we wrote at the beginning of the stream works pretty well. I'm gonna definitely keep that. And then I'm gonna have a think about how I actually want to do this level boundary thing here. But I think maybe it's time to call it quits for this stream. Hopefully Shah got his or her Discord sorted out. Not sure what happened with that. It's kind of strange that it refused to let them in. So hopefully that's not like a widespread issue. But regardless, if you want to play the game, do join the Discord. And you can play this mission, or this level, I should say, not this mission. You can play this level today without any mission, because it's not done yet. And you can play the demo mission, which has been available since pre-alpha 1. And yeah, pre-alpha 3 coming relatively soon. I'm gonna keep the time between those releases much quicker than it was between pre-alpha 1 and 2. It took way too long to make. So let's try to get some builds out to you people at a more rapid pace. Guess you will probably find out how much of an issue it is if people bring it up in testing. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, and that's one reason why I kind of want to keep it simple for now, right? Just adding this blocker here essentially solves all of the issues that I have with the game, you know, the gameplay issues. It just solves them all in one fell swoop, in the sense that, like, you can't, at least if the mesh that we add here is you know, well designed enough that you can't really get stuck. And I realize now that, okay, I actually kind of need to probably put in quite a lot of effort to make sure this mesh that we fit onto this cliff piece here is like really well made and fills all of those holes. But if you do that, and we can technically even just snap it to these vertices here. But if you do that well, then it kind of solves all of the gameplay issues we have from, like, falling off the cliff. And then it's just a question of, like, how do we make it intuitive and obvious and just, you know, nice players. But still, there's not a whole lot of work involved in doing this. I can you know, even do it tonight if I want to. If I just sit down with Blender and then just block out the blocker for this entire thing here, and then we can let people play it and see how they feel. So it's not a whole upfront work, which is nice when you don't exactly know if you're gonna ship this or not. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling from me for this time. Do all the YouTube jazz, like, subscribe, and all of that. You know what to do. And I'll probably do another stream in a few days, unless something weird comes up. But this was nice. Thanks to everyone who came to hang out. See you next time.